Yo, what's going on, guys? Today, we'll be ranking every card in Clash Royale. Before we start off, I just want to remind you guys to comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of the rankings. A lot has changed because of the new evolutions. I'll try ranking the cards somewhat quickly today. To start off with, we have the Mage of the Fire variety. It has a nice home in the F tier. I'm mainly basing this list off of competitive play and top ladder, so yeah, that's the main reason. This isn't mid ladder. It's not used in pretty much any deck. I feel like a good change to it could be to give it an enter the arena ability of like a little fire circle similar to the Ice Mage, Ice Wizard. Up next we have the Xbow. Pretty bad in this meta. There's so much Hog Earthquake and the new evolved Royal Giant completely destroys it. I'll put it low C tier. Zap. It's not horrible in itself, but every other small spell is way better, so I'll also put it right behind the Xbow in C tier. Zappies. They're not bad in this meta, but quite a few people do use Fireball to counter stuff like Skeleton Dragons and the evolved Firecracker. I'll put them mid B tier. Very solid card. Definitely has a place in the meta. Man, Battle Healer. That's an interesting one. Everyone thought it would be so good after it got the buff, but especially with evolutions now, it just kind of disappeared and no one uses it anymore. It seems a bit better than before, so I'll put it in the D tier. I feel like with one more small buff it could be a pretty good card, but I don't know if I want it to get buffed because it does seem like it has the potential to be really strong. Battle Ram. I'll put it right above the Battle Healer in D tier. It could be near the very bottom of C tier, but the decks that use Battle Ram are really bad right now, and only Pekka and maybe one other deck use it. Bomb Tower, definitely the best building right now, or at least close to the best building. I have to put it A tier, probably high A tier. I wouldn't mind if it got a small nerf, honestly. Bomber. I don't see too many people use Bomber. It's not a half bad card though. I think it's pretty much only used in Royal Giant. I'll put it above Xbow in the C tier. Bowler. I feel like Bowler's pretty good, but nobody uses it right now. Nobody plays Lumberloon Freeze anymore, at least at top ladder. And not too many people use graveyard decks with Bowler either. I guess I'll put it right above the Xbow in C tier just because it's still a good card, even though nobody plays it. Cannon. Cannon is still pretty good, but it does get quite overshadowed by the Bomb Tower. I'll put it above Zappies in the B tier, pretty much on par with the Zappies. Still usable for sure. Cannon Cart. It's good in competitive play, but very bad on ladder. The reason it's so bad on ladder is because it just doesn't feel as solid as other 5 elixir options or even 4 elixir options because it doesn't hit air, and yeah, it just feels quite situational, but it can be really good sometimes. I'll put it above the Bomber in C tier. Could be low B tier maybe, but considering that it's pretty bad on ladder, I feel like this is a pretty solid ranking. Clone. Man, Clone is so bad right now. I'll put it right below the Fire Mage in the F tier. It's so bad right now because everyone uses Poison, and even when you don't face Poison, you always see E-Spirit in decks like RG, and also the evolved Firecracker is just insane against Clone with the little area of effect things that it has now. Dark Prince. Another solid card, but everyone prefers Ghost over it, so it doesn't really get nearly any play on ladder or competitive play. I'll put it right above the Cannon Cart in C tier. Dark Goblin. Everyone says how good the Dark Goblin is, but I can't find a single deck on top ladder that uses it except some off-meta bait decks, so I'll put it right above the Bomber in C tier. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it can be really good sometimes if your opponent has no log in cycle or in their deck. Archers. Man, I remember when they were so broken, but they just fell off really quickly. Now everything else is better. Pretty much all of the other support cards like Musketeer, Archer Queen, all of that stuff is a better option now. So I'll put Archers right above the Dark Goblin in C tier. They're definitely viable, but not good. Earthquake. Normally I put Earthquake in the C tier. I almost want to put it low B tier, but it's hard to decide. Hog Earthquake is really good right now, but I don't think it's because of the Earthquake itself. I'll put Earthquake at the top of the C tier. It's a really good card right now, compared to before at least, but it's still only used in one deck, and the reason it's a popular deck isn't really because of the Earthquake itself, I feel like. Electro Dragon. I know a few Golem decks were using it, and Elixir Golem, but they all disappeared, just like all the Battle Healer decks, since they're usually used together, so... Could be D tier, but I just haven't seen it for a while. I'll put it D tier. It's not a horrible card, even though nobody plays it. Well, I guess it is kind of horrible, but not as bad as the other stuff. Electro Giant. It was pretty good before the evolutions, but now people just use other stuff, it seems like. I'll put it right behind the Earthquake in the C tier. I mean, if you consider competitive play, it might be a bit higher up, since people will have to play more different decks instead of just the evolution decks, but I think I'll still put it right near the top of C tier. Electro Spirit. Normally I put Electro Spirit in the C tier, but since Royal Giant is so good right now and Electro Spirit is pretty much used exclusively in Royal Giant, I'll put it right next to the Zappies in B tier. It's a really good spirit. Electro Wizard. I don't usually rank it too high either, but I have seen more Electro Wizard recently just to counter all of the Mighty Miner going around. I'll put it right behind the Dark Prince in C tier. It could be low B tier maybe, but I don't know. I feel like other stuff are still better than it, like the Musketeer. Elite Barbarians. I feel like everyone plays Barbarians now instead of Elite Barbarians, since the Barbarians have the evolution, so there's no real reason to use them except in maybe 1 or 2 off-meta decks. They can go right behind the Bomber in C tier. They're definitely usable, just not too good in this current meta. Elixir Collector. Elixir Collector used to be pretty good in that one Xbow Elixir Collector deck, but it just fell off so quickly because Earthquake is the biggest counter to it, and also Royal Giant does counter that one deck that it's used in. So I think I'll have to put it... I mean, if I was ranking it as a card, I might put it at the bottom of B tier or very high C tier, but just in this current meta, I'll put it right above the Dark Goblin. Elixir Golem. Man, I have not seen Elixir Golem in ages. I feel like even Fire Mage is better, so I'll put it right in between Fire Mage and Clone in the F tier. Executioner. It's not too good anymore. It does really good splash damage, but you have the Evolved Firecracker, which does a way better job without even having to be comboed with a Tornado. I'll put Executioner right above the Dark Goblin in C tier. It's not horrible after that one buff that it got, increasing its range. Fire Spirit. I haven't seen Fire Spirit in a long time. Everyone uses Electro Spirit in Royal Giant and then Ice Spirit in every other deck pretty much, but it's still a good card. I almost want to put it high C tier, but just because it's a 1 elixir card and can get a lot of value sometimes, I feel like low B tier is justifiable. Arrows. I'll put arrows A tier. They're a bit better in this meta. They do really well at countering the Firecracker. Even though it doesn't fully counter the Evolved Firecracker, they're still pretty good right now, and they have been used in quite a few of the top meta decks. Fireball. I'll put Fireball right above the arrows in the A tier. It's also quite good in this meta. There's a lot of Royal Giant decks especially that always play Fireball to counter Firecracker. You can't really run Lightning anymore in Royal Giant, at least not as effectively. Firecracker. Man, I don't even know where to put it because it's really good in Hog Earthquake, but I don't really see it outside of Hog Earthquake just because even though it's a super good evolution, it takes 2 normal Firecrackers to get to the Evolved Firecracker, so you don't get the Evolved Firecracker that often in matches. I think I'll put it in A tier, right above Fireball, right behind Bomb Tower. I might even put it low A tier, but just for now I'll say mid A tier is a good spot for it. It's way better than before. It also got that small buff in the balance changes even besides the evolution buff that it got. Fisherman. Normally I put Fisherman in the C tier, but Royal Giant is super broken, probably going to be the best deck this season, so I'll put it right below the Electro Spirit in B tier. Could also be very high C tier. Flying Machine. You don't see too much Flying Machine. Phoenix is still so much better. There might be a few Royal Recruits decks with the Flying Machine, but I think that's pretty much it. I'll put it right near the middle of C tier. It's a decent card. Freeze. I haven't seen Freeze for a while. Only a few Graveyard Freeze players. I'm tempted to put it at the bottom of C tier, but I almost feel like it belongs in D tier. Yeah, I think I'll put it at the top of D tier. It could be very low C tier, but this meta just isn't good for Lumberloon Freeze, so I think that's fair. Furnace. Furnace feels pretty bad, but it doesn't feel completely unplayable. Except at top ladder, where you face Earthquake or Poison every single game. I'll put Furnace above or below Wizard. I'll put it above. It's not great right now, just the spells that are meta counter it so easily. Giant. Why play Giant when you have Royal Giant? That's my question. And also Mighty Monitor does super well at countering the Giant. I'll put it in C tier right below the Archers. It's somewhat viable, but only if you're really good with it and kind of a one trick. Giant Skeleton. I always say Giant Skeleton is a good card, but there's so much Mighty Monitor that you can't really run it without at least having an Electro Wizard or Zappies in your deck, which don't fit too well in most of my favorite Giant Skeleton decks, like Giant Skeleton Hog Rider, even Giant Skeleton Mortar. So I'll put it, I don't know. I'll put it right above the Archers in C tier. Maybe right, yeah, I'll put it right above the Archers in C tier. Snowball. I'll give it a low B tier. Pretty average spell. Goblin Barrel. Logbait seems pretty okay in this meta. Nothing crazy though. I'll put it below the Electro Giant in C tier. Baby Dragon. It was going to get a change, but it didn't end up going through, so I think Baby Dragon is fine. Maybe right above... No, right above Cannon Cart in the C tier. It's usable in Graveyard, and that's pretty much it. Maybe some random off-meta decks. Goblin Cage. I always feel like Goblin Cage is pretty good, but it's not that good. It's never used in the top meta decks. It's always used in less popular stuff, like Royal Recruits and different things like that. I'll put it above the Electro Wizard in C tier. Goblin Drill. Haven't seen Goblin Drill for a while. I guess it just can't compete too well with the new evolved decks like Hog Earthquake with the Firecracker and the new evolved Royal Giant. I'll put it right above, right above the Electro Wizard in C tier. It is used in competitive play sometimes, at least. Goblin Gang. I feel like Goblin Gang isn't too bad now, but Goblins are 10 times better. So Goblin Gang probably has to be... I almost want to put it C tier, but I feel like it could be in D tier. I'll put it C tier. It's not a good meta for Goblin Gang, but if Goblins got a nerf, an actual good nerf, then I think Goblin Gang could be a decent card. Goblin Giant. Haven't seen Goblin Giant for quite some time. Goblin Giant's almost always used with Sparky, and I don't see too much Sparky these days. I would say Goblin Giant could go maybe right above the Zap in the C tier. Yeah. It's pretty much on par with these other cards. Goblin Hut. I do have to say I may have mistakenly ranked it a bit lower than it should have been last time by putting it in the F tier when it had the triple spear goblin death spawn. But they nerfed it since then, so now I feel like it actually is probably in the F tier. Yeah, I think it is F tier. I'll put it at the very top of the F tier. It could be D tier, possibly, but I don't know. I feel like it is pretty bad now, once again. Goblins. First S tier card. I really just want them to get a decent nerf. They did get a small nerf, but it didn't really change much of anything, so they're still super broken and pretty much in every deck. They do overshadow skeletons quite a bit as well, even with the evolutions. Golem. It was okay before the evolutions came out. You guys will hear me talk about evolutions a lot throughout this video. They pretty much changed everything. Right now, Golem doesn't seem too good. I think I'll put it right above the Zap in C tier. It's pretty bad, only used in competitive play once in a while when you face a cycle player who you want to snipe. Graveyard. I heard Graveyard wasn't doing too well in this meta. I think the Royal Giant deck counters it quite a bit, especially with the evolved RG. Just has too much HP for them to DPS down most of the time. It's a good win condition though, so... Yeah, I feel like the Graveyard deck itself isn't too good right now, but the card, like Graveyard, the actual card, it's still a good card, in my opinion. So I think I'll put it above Fisherman in B tier. It's also pretty good in competitive play. Guards. They're pretty good, but Goblins are so much better. They're used in competitive play sometimes when you waste the Goblins in another deck. I'll say they could go right above the Goblin Drill in C tier. Heal Spirit. I'll put it right above the Zap in C tier. It's used in a couple of decks, couple off-meta decks, but isn't the best card. It can get a lot of value sometimes though, and completely turn around situations. Balloon. Balloon Cycle does seem pretty strong in this meta, but I haven't seen too many players use it. I think I'll still give it the B tier, right behind the Snowball. Right behind the Fisherman, I mean. Also, Lavaloon isn't too bad in this meta. Hog Rider. It could almost be A tier, but I think it's more so the other cards in the Hog Rider deck that make it broken, not the Hog Rider itself. Similar story to the Earthquake. So I'll put it maybe right above Zappies, or maybe at the very top of B tier. It's a really good win condition right now. Hunter. Haven't seen Hunter in a long time. The only deck it was used in was Royal Giant, but now all the Royal Giant decks use Phoenix instead. So I think Hunter should be pretty good in the C tier. Maybe right above Dark Goblin. Ice Golem. Only used in 2.6, sometimes in off-meta Balloon decks. I'll put it right below the Goblin Giant in C tier. We have a lot of C tier cards here. Ice Spirit. It could almost be S tier to be honest, but I think I'll have to put it right below the Firecracker in A tier. It's a really strong card. Ice Mage. It got a small buff to its radius with the spawn-in effect, but didn't really make much of a difference. It should be good in C tier. Right. You know what, I feel like I should put it even lower. I'll put it right behind Hunter. Inferno Dragon. Inferno Dragon does seem quite good in this meta just to counter the evolved Royal Giant. It still shreds through it no matter how much HP it has, and it doesn't get affected by the ground pound effect since it's a flying troop. I'll put it in the A tier. Maybe closer to the bottom of the A tier, could be higher up. We just have to see how the meta plays out. Inferno Tower. It seems really good in this meta to counter the new Royal Giant. I think B tier is actually fair. I'll put it right behind the Fisherman in B tier. It's surprisingly good right now because no one runs Lightning to counter it, so it gets a lot of value. Knight. I haven't seen Knight in a very long time. Everyone plays Mighty Monarch over it at top ladder in competitive play. I'll put it right... Let's see, I'll put it right above... You know, I feel like it does fit pretty well right above the big mustache guy, the giant. Took me a while to decide there. Lava Hound. I mean, Lavaloon is decent in this meta. Lava Hound Monarch pretty much fell off though, so I don't think Lava Hound is too good right now. I'll put it right below the Dark Prince in C tier. There's a lot of mediocre stuff in this meta. There's just a few decks that are completely dominating. Lightning. I'll put Lightning right... I can't decide. I'll put it right above the Balloon in B tier. It's not used too much. I know it's still a really good spell though, even though not too many people play it. Most people play Fireball instead. Bandit. Haven't seen too much Bandit. I'll put it right above the Baby Dragon in C tier. Lumberjack. I don't see Lumberjack almost ever, if I'm being honest. I'll put it right above the Ice Wizard in the C tier. You know what, I'll put it even lower. I'll put it right below the Bomber. Magic Archer. Magic Archer seems really good. The Magic Archer Minor Wall Breakers deck just never dies, and it always gets so much value from the Magic Archer, especially. I'll put it in the C tier. I mean B tier, right above the Balloon. Mega Knight. Mega Knight completely fell off. Mighty Monarch just shreds through it. I almost want to put it D tier, but I feel like if the meta was better for it, it would be more in the C tier, so I think I'll give it C tier. Maybe right behind Golem. Mega Minion. I'll give it somewhat high C tier. Or maybe more towards the mid C tier. I don't know, just that Phoenix is so much better. I'll put it right below the Flying Machine. It's used in Lava Hound, but I guess that's pretty much it. Modder. I'll put it in the A tier. Right below Ice Spirit. It's still a really good card, but the new evolutions have changed the meta quite a bit, and not too many people use Mana anymore, even though it's a really solid card. Mini Pekka. And Mini Pekka can get perma pushed back by the new evolved Royal Giant, so pretty much everyone prefers Mighty Monarch over Mini Pekka. I'll put the Mini Pekka right behind the Elite Barbarians. You know what, maybe right behind the Bowler. Yeah, in C tier. Minion Horde. There's so much arrows, and also Firecracker destroys it, and the Mighty Monarch Death Bomb, or Ability Bomb, destroys it. I'll put it right above the Healer in D tier. Minions. They're pretty good. They're a really strong card, but not when arrows dominate the meta. So I'll have to put them maybe right around the middle of the C tier. I'll put them right next to the Mega Minion and Flying Machine. Mirror. I'm putting that all the way down, man. I haven't seen Mirror in a long time. Mortar. It did fall off slightly. A lot of the decks that used Mortar before, like Hog Earthquake, they switched to Bomb Tower now just to combat the Royal Giant decks a bit better, and also the other Hog Earthquake decks, because if you have Bomb Tower against a Hog Rider Earthquake Mirror matchup, it's a lot better than having Mortar. I'll put Mortar in the B tier, right below Inferno Tower. It's probably still pretty good in competitive play, but not too good on ladder. Barbarian Barrel. I almost want to give it low A tier, but I think I'll have to stick with high B tier. I'll put it right above the Hog Rider. It's a pretty versatile small spell, just good in beatdown decks, not too good in cycle decks, except maybe some Royal Giant decks. Mother Witch. Haven't seen Mother Witch for a while. I know a couple Royal Giant decks might use it, but that's probably just about it. I'll put it right above the Giant in C tier. Musketeer. I haven't seen Musketeer too much either after the evolutions came out. Everyone plays Firecracker instead of it, or something like Phoenix. I think I'll give it the B tier, right below Hog Rider. Night Witch. It got a small buff, but beatdown definitely isn't in the best spot right now with all the Inferno Tower, Inferno Dragon, the evolved skeletons completely destroying a whole golem push for pretty much one elixir. I'll give Night Witch the C tier. I'll put it right below the Mega Knight. I feel like it's not bad, but this meta just isn't for it. You know, I'll put it below the Heal Spirit. Pekka. I haven't seen Pekka for a long while. I'll put Pekka right above the Mega Knight. I mean, I have seen some Pekka, but I haven't seen any Pekka players doing well recently. So I feel like that's fair. Poison. I'm just wondering whether Poison or Fireball is better. I think I'll put it above Fireball. Even though Mana Poison isn't too popular anymore, it's still really good in competitive play with Graveyard, Mana, as I just said, and maybe a few other things. So it's a good big spell for sure. Prince. Nobody plays Prince anymore. It can go right above the Lumberjack in C tier. It's used in some Mega Knight Prince decks in competitive play. That's pretty much it. You know what, now that I think about it, I'll put Mega Knight above Pekka since a few people use it in competitive play. Princess. I don't even know, to be honest. I'll put it right above the giant skeleton in C tier. Logbait's decent right now. Not crazy good, not too bad either. Rage. I did see Rage being used quite a bit in Royal Giant decks especially, so I feel like it's actually not too bad right now. Not too good either, but not bad. I'll put it high C tier, since it's used in some pretty good meta decks. Ramrider. Ramrider disappeared. I guess Bomb Tower is just way too good against it, and also all of the cycle cards going around like Ice Spirit and Goblins can destroy it pretty easily. I'll put Ramrider maybe right above the Goblin. Maybe right above Mini. Now, you know what? I feel like it does deserve to be a little bit higher. Maybe right below the Prince in the C tier. And now that I think about it, Prince can also go above the Dark Goblin and Ice Mage. I keep switching my rankings. Just want to make sure I have a pretty accurate list for you guys. Rascals. They were used a decent bit, but then the new Firecracker does counter them pretty easily. This is a tough one. I guess I'll put them right above the Ice Mage in the C tier. They could even be like a little bit more towards the bottom of the C tier. You know what, now that I think about it, I don't know, they're used in some graveyard decks in competitive play. That's pretty much it. I'll leave them there for now. Barbarian Hut. Man, I have not seen that card in forever. Before Evolutions it was already bad, but now with the evolved Firecracker, that probably destroys it even more. So, yeah, I think it's pretty bad. I'll put it right above the clone in F tier. Rocket. It's used in Logbait. A few one-tricks use it as well. I'll put it above the mini Pekka. You know what, I might put it a little bit higher. I'll put it right above the Ramrider in C tier. Delivery. Pretty good card. Not used too much these days, but still gets the job done for most decks. I'll put it right below the Rage in C tier. Royal Ghost. Man, Ghost is so good right now. I almost want to put it low A tier, but I feel like maybe right above the Cannon in B tier should be pretty solid. Maybe even above the Musketeer too. Royal Giant. Very top of the S tier. It's just completely insane right now. They definitely need to nerf the evolved Royal Giant to make it happen only after you cycle 2 normal Royal Giants instead of just 1. And they could even nerf the evolution a bit too, so it doesn't knock back stuff as often. Or like as far, or something like that. Royal Hogs. They were pretty good before evolutions, but after evolutions, people switched to using Bomb Tower instead of other buildings, which in turn makes Royal Hogs quite a bit worse right now. I don't even know, man. I haven't seen them in a while. I'll put them right below the Lava Hound in C tier. Royal Recruits. I do see a few Recruits players doing their thing on ladder. I'll put them right above the Giant Skeleton in C tier. Skeleton Army. Haven't seen Skeleton Army for quite some time either. I don't know why. I guess the meta just isn't suited for it. The meta decks don't really need a Skeleton Army, I guess. It can fit nicely right below the Prince in C tier. Skeleton Barrel. I haven't seen Skeleton Barrel for a long time as well. I'll put it at the very top of... You know, I'll put it right behind the Goblin Gang in C tier. It could be high D tier. It's not a horrible card though. Skeleton Dragons, they got quite a bit better. I'm not sure where I would put them. I almost want to put them B tier. I think I'll put them at the very top of C tier. They're a pretty solid card right now. They had a really good buff. Skeletons, they did get the evolution, but Goblins are still so much better in most decks. I could either put them very low A tier or very top of the B tier. I think I'll put them... You know, I think I'll put them at the very bottom of the A tier because I saw a few Hog Earthquake players were switching to Skeletons instead of Goblins. Barbarians. They got a pretty nice evolution, but they're not super versatile, so even though they're quite a bit better now, they're still not too good. Just trying to think where would be fitting for them. Maybe right below the Royal Hogs in C tier. They could be even better than that. I'm not sure. They could be very low B tier. We'll have to wait and see how the meta evolves. It's still kind of early on for me to say too much. Sparky definitely did fall off quite a bit. Haven't seen Sparky in a long time. I'll put it right next to the Goblin Giant since they're pretty much partners in crime. Spear Goblins, very good card, but Goblins are still better by quite a bit. I have to put them maybe right behind Inferno Tower in B tier. Tesla. Man, Tesla is bad. Tesla is really bad. It's so bad against the new evolved Royal Giant as well. I think I'll put it right above Pekka in C tier. I wouldn't mind if it got a small buff. Log. I could put it low S tier, but since there's some arrows going around, there is a bit of competition. So I think I'll put it at the very top of A tier. Borderline S tier. Three Musketeers. They fell off pretty hard. I'll put them right behind Battle Ram in the D tier. Not a good card in this meta at all. Tombstone. Tombstone seems pretty solid right now. Does a really good job in Lava Hound, Graveyard, stuff like that. I don't know exactly where it should go. I'll put it right above Cannon in the B tier. Tornado. I haven't seen too many Tornado decks, but it's still a really broken card fundamentally. I feel like it is better than Fisherman. I almost want to put it A tier, but I'm just leaning between that and high B tier. I think I'll go A tier. Maybe the bottom of the A tier. It's not quite as good in this specific meta, but it's still a really broken card overall. Valkyrie. It's a good card, but ever since Mighty Miner became broken, people kind of forgot about it. I think I'll put it right below the Barbarians in C tier. Wallers. Minor Wall Breakers is always pretty strong. I think I'll put it right above Balloon. You know what, I might even put them above Magic Archer in the yeah, I'll put it a little bit higher actually, right behind the Spear Goblins in B tier. Which probably F tier if I'm being honest. There's so much poison. I'll put it at the top of F tier. I don't even know honestly. Maybe right behind the Goblin Hut in F tier. Bats. Not too many decks use bats these days. There's a lot of Electro Spirit which does counter them pretty well. And also Rage. I'll put them right behind the Rage in C tier. Archer Queen. Really strong right now, but there has been some more competition for it with the Firecracker being used in pretty much all of the Hog decks now instead of Archer Queen. I think I'll put it right above the Musketeer in B tier. Golden Knight. It was only used in Electro Giant and a few Goblin Joe decks, which are both not used too much these days. Maybe a little bit in competitive play, not too much on ladder anymore. I'll put it right above the Dark Prince in C tier. Skeleton King. I don't see it too much either. Some Royal Giant decks though, and some Graveyard decks, so I think I'll put it, you know, I'll probably put it a little bit higher. Yeah, I'll put it right above the Cannon in B tier. Mighty Miner. Definitely going in the S tier, probably below Goblins. And yeah, besides that, we just have the Monk and the Phoenix. I would put Monk probably very high C tier, if not low B tier. Maybe low B tier, probably right above the Fire Spirit or right above the Snowball. Pretty solid card to counter certain stuff, like Musketeer and Firecracker. And for Phoenix, I would definitely put it high A tier, probably right below Log. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!